We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking more about the Book of Boba Fett. We are on episode 6 of the series. This is season 1, of course. And a lot of stuff happened this week. We said last week a lot of stuff happened. Well, they definitely upped the ante this week. So, Sarah, what happened this week?
Okay, got my notes ready, so be prepared. First, we start out with the Marshal. If you remember him from the Mandalorian season, he originally had Boba Fett's armor before Boba got it back, right? So we see that Marshal again, and he's dealing with this little group of pikes. That's, I don't know, 4 guys maybe, who are trying to run spice through his town. And of course, he doesn't want any of that going on. And he manages to quick draw and shoot 3 of them, leaving the 4th one to carry a message back to the rest of the pikes, telling them to just leave that city alone. And instead of being killed or taken prisoner, he had to leave all of his spice, which was apparently worth more than that town itself, which the Marshal just lets kind of drift off in the sand. He really doesn't care about it. He's not in it for the money. So then we kind of switch gears and we see Mando flying his new ship to some unknown planet. Looks very green and earthy. We see R2-D2 welcome him and kind of create this little bench for him to sit and wait for whoever to arrive. He thinks he's waiting for Luke, but who actually shows up is Ahsoka. In the meantime, while he's waiting, we as the viewers kind of cut over to this mini training or focus session between Luke and Grogu, which is kind of funny because he keeps playing with frogs. We all know he loves to eat frogs. We see him kind of help Grogu remember some of his history from back home, which is actually a flashback to Order 66, where the troopers are taking out a couple of Jedi in front of him, and then that's kind of all the further we get to see of that flashback, so it's a very brief flashback for him. Ahsoka takes the gift from Mando and allows him to see Grogu, but not really like visit with him. He just kind of sees him way off in the distance and reemphasizes that he can't have any kind of personal relationships while he's in his Jedi training because it's just not the way, and he'll lose focus. Mando agrees. Basically, it's a very sad moment that he doesn't get to go and visit Grogu. But we also see Luke teach Grogu about the balance of the Force and about physical balance. They use a training ball. Is there a name for that?
Training droid.
A training droid. That is almost kind of shooting little lasers at Grogu's feet so he can learn to jump and escape the little lasers and kind of anticipate things that are going to possibly hurt him. We see Mando fly off to Jabba's palace, or Boba's palace, right? Now that Boba's there. And Fennec reviews with the team that's there where the pikes are all at around town. It's kind of an interesting scene because we do see Boba there, but he doesn't have any talking lines. So it's another episode where we don't see him speak at all. But we do at least get to see him this time. Where am I at? So after kind of reviewing this plan, Mando says, well, I know where I can get some more people to help us fight. So he goes to visit the Marshal that we saw from the beginning of the episode, and tries to persuade him to join this upcoming war. Both the Marshal and the bartender where they're at in that town seem like they don't really want to deal with any more war. They don't owe anything to anybody, and they kind of just want to be a peaceful little town. But the Marshal says he'll see what he can do, right? So Mando leaves, and just after he leaves, we see this figure walk up from the distance. We can't really tell who it is. looks kind of sketchy. As they get closer, we can see that it's actually Cad Bane, which I know is super exciting for a lot of people. Jeremy may or may not have been like, whoa. So that was kind of pretty cool to see. So he wants to pay the marshal to stay out of the fight between Boba and the Pikes, saying, I'll pay you whatever Boba's paying you, just stay out of it, and nobody will get hurt. The marshal has this other deputy who's not necessarily as smart or forward thinking as the marshal is. And so, as the marshal's basically saying to Cad Bane, who he still doesn't know who Cad Bane is because he won't say his name. Basically just to leave us alone. We don't want anything to do with the spice. There gets to be kind of this little quick draw scene where they both show that they have their guns and they're ready to draw. And the deputy almost kind of makes a movement like he's going to try to draw first, which distracts the marshal. And it actually makes the marshal lose this fight. I'm blaming the deputy on this one. So Cad Bane takes out both of them. We don't know necessarily that they're dead, but we do know that they both fell to the ground, and that's all the further we kind of see from them. We go back to Tatooine, and I'm sorry, we're still on Tatooine, but we go back to the area where Boba is and the bar that the one lady runs in town, and we see two Pikes walking into a bar. Now that sounds like the start of a joke, but it's not. So we see them walk in. They've got this weird looking tank thing, and they order some drinks. They leave the tank behind. They leave. And the droid that's serving them drinks is like, hey, you left this behind. And all of a sudden, boom, just giant explosions. The whole bar is obliterated. Everybody inside just presumably dead. We scene change again away from that, so we don't really get to see how that resolves or Boba's reaction or anything to that yet. But our final scene here is Luke with the chainmail that's from Mando and presenting that to Grogu, saying, basically, you can have this if you want it, or you can have this other object, and it's Yoda's lightsaber. So either I can train you to use the Force and you can have the lightsaber, or you can go back to living with Mando, forget about the Force, and just live your happy life, not learning all these cool fighting techniques and whatnot. And that is the episode in a nutshell.
Nice, which is a lot to chew on. It was, they in my opinion, they didn't waste any time. They had like an hour block and they filled it. So Tony, what'd you think of the episode?
I thought it was really good overall. I really enjoyed it. Again, kind of echoing what we talked about last week. I can already hear the narratives like, oh, this is the second episode in a row that there's no Boba Fett. Blah, blah, blah. But I just want to like double down on my thoughts on last week. Last week I talked more about storytelling in general, but this week I heard another really good point. I think I actually meant to say it last week, but just forgot. But this show is called The Book of Boba Fett. Not just Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett. And when you are reading a book, there are times where there is a chapter or two that talks about separate groups of characters, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes with the goal of having them connect with kind of the main story towards the end. And that's exactly what this is doing. It would have been, there would have been sort of like a shock value, I guess, if we just got to the final fight with the Pikes and then like Mando showed up and like maybe Grogu showed up and the Marshal and all this stuff. And we would have been like, whoa, wait, how, why, how, what, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But now we have this backstory, and we understand why all these characters are coming to help Boba. So to me, it all makes perfect sense. Is it what people expected? Probably not. They probably expected Boba-centric episodes every episode. Understandable expectation. I'm not going to criticize anybody who thought that way, um, but you have to evaluate and assess what's there, not what you want to be there. And I've mentioned that before on here. So, I'm all good with it. I think it's great. My only one nitpick with this episode, and it possibly might sound hypocritical with what I just said, but it's not what I'm about to say. The issue is not with the deviation. It's just that we had basically three stories going on. We had Luke and Grogu. We had the Marshal stuff with the Marshal, and then we had the bar being blown up. So kind of like back to Boba stuff. And they all three were like setting up things that I think are not going to be all addressed in the final episode, because this was the penultimate episode. And I definitely think some of this stuff was to set up future Star Wars shows, which isn't an awful thing. But it was just kind of like, it was like a tease. Like the episode kept teasing me. You know what I mean? Like it would be, I would get into Luke and Grogu and then it'd be over. And then it would be like the Marshall stuff and I'd get really into it and then it would be over, etc. So that's just a small nitpick. It's nothing to make me totally hate the episode or anything like that. Obviously, loved all of the, fan servicey stuff and, all that stuff made me happy. Seeing live action Cad Bane was great. I love Cad Bane in Clone Wars, and I don't remember if he was in Rebels or not. I can't remember.
It was in Bad Batch.
It was in Bad Batch, yes. So yeah, I love that character. So it was really cool to see him. And Jeremy, you mentioned, we were texting earlier, that he seemed a lot more menacing in this show, and I would agree with that, because he definitely seemed to be. I bought that he was sending a message from a crime syndicate. You know what I mean?
Gnarly teeth too. Ugh.
Gnarly teeth, yes, yes, love it. Prosthetics, all that stuff was great. Another thing I really liked about this, and I've said this on here before, I think Star Wars is strongest when it leans into the genres that inspired it. And you've obviously had Western, genre motifs all over the place with the martial stuff. I mean, the first shot of that was the gunslinger shot, which is like a classic Western thing. Obviously, you had a good, bad, and the ugly style shootout standoff, so that was great. You have like Godfather vibes with the bombing of the cantina, and then the Luke presenting Grogu with the choice was like straight out of the Lone Wolf and the Cub, which is like what Mandalorian's based, like the whole story is based on that Japanese samurai movie. So like I want to say the Cub was offered like a sword and something else, I can't remember, but similar idea. So those sorts of things for a film nerd like me, those are cool to see. So good episode. I am, and I'm going to say this in a positive way. I'm not going to say it in a negative way, but I am just chomping at the bit to see this final fight in the last episode. Like I am just like, oh, like you set up all this stuff. Like let's do it. Like come on, let's fight. So hopefully that's satisfying next week. But overall, good stuff. Enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, I would totally agree. I really liked the episode. It was very, very cool. From start to finish, I felt like there was, no boring parts. It was, like I said before, it was filled with stuff, and they really covered a lot of bases. Some of the stuff that I really liked, there's something that I really liked that I also really dislike, depending on what's happening in the episode. And the first thing I want to address is the deep fake technology, if that's what it's called. So I felt like when Luke did not say anything, I felt he almost looked perfect with the deep fake. But if he had to talk, I felt like the visual of his face was a little bit off. Like it looked a little more like the actor as opposed to Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. And I want to say they also are deep faking the voice a little bit because I felt like sometimes when I was watching, it almost looked like the words weren't matching the lips. Like there was a little bit of a sync issue. Um, so that's one of my little pet peeves, but also really enjoyed it because it looked phenomenal when it was on point. So that was really cool.
Did you ever watch the? Sorry not to cut you off. Did you ever watch the behind the scenes video where Jon Favreau explained how they did all that stuff with Mandalorian?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that compared to the Mandalorian, it was improved
Oh,
greatly.
definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
There were some shots where I could not tell that it was a separate actor.
Same.
I had the same feelings, except for me, it wasn't so much in the mouth that I could tell a difference. It was more so his eyes and his eyebrows. Every once in a while, it would just look a little bit kind of funky, like it wasn't quite what you'd hope to see. But for the most part, I think it matched up pretty good.
I also remember you made some comments about his hairdo.
The hair was too stiff, too thick, and not fluffy enough. It needed to be a lot lighter. And I don't mean color, I mean like weight, I think.
So yeah, that was kind of my what I liked and disliked of how Luke was handled. I thought his character was perfect. Like the actor really did a good job being Luke. One of the like cute little things that happened in the episode that we didn't mention was like, so Luke is talking to Grogu in the episode, and they're walking along in the forest, and obviously Luke has longer strides than Grogu, and so he's like picking him
He's
up,
like picking him up.
yeah, with the force every few steps. So I thought that was kind of a funny little way to address, their step difference. It was kind of cool to see because obviously we see that, but then we also see some training of Grogu. And, one of the comments I made to Sarah while watching was like, so when does Grogu turn into, fighting like a basketball, dribbling everywhere like Yoda was, how he bounces everywhere. And because Grogu is, still very kind of stiff with his walking. And we kind of got a little bit of a training montage where he's, learning how to, do all these jumps. I would say using the force because his itty bitty legs probably couldn't, have that much jump to it without it. But another thing that I really liked about this, and Tony, I'm going to say, I'm not trying to spite you with this, what I'm about to say. When I was watching this, I was like, that's how we do a training montage between Luke and another person, like another force user, because I was remembering back to Luke and Rey and wanting way more in The Last Jedi. And I felt like the way that Luke was not only training, so the stuff that we saw, but the way he was talking to Grogu made a lot more sense to me as far as learning to become a Jedi. And one of the big ones that is, it's said by Luke, but it's also echoed, by Ahsoka to Mandalorian, is that, Grogu, can't get attached to Mando because the fear of loss, which is what, sent Luke's father down the wrong path, they fear that. And, he's making that a huge thing, especially near the end of the episode where he's saying, Mando is only, this much of your life because you live so long. Yoda was almost 900 years old, I think, when he died. And, Mando is a human, so he can only live so long. So
Grogu's what, 50?
Yeah, he's around 50 years old. And, Luke is telling him, you can make the choice of going with Mando and forget this, and he's only going to be this small segment of your life, or you can do something that's going to be a part of your life the entire time, which is the way of the Jedi. So I think like these little nitpicky things that, Luke is really trying to emphasize on with training him to become a Jedi is more, I don't know if I want to say believable or realistic, but maybe more true to the Jedi way, I feel, as opposed to the way he was handling it in The Last Jedi. Maybe the way he was doing it in The Last Jedi was trying to prevent Kylo part two happening so much because the focus wasn't on that stuff as much. But I don't know how you feel about that, Tony.
I'll say this. I 100% agree with everything you just said. But to kind of take the next step, the Luke in The Last Jedi is a different Luke than
True.
the Luke in Boba Fett. Like they're two in two completely different areas. One is more, he's a fresh Jedi. He's into the institution and all that stuff. And then obviously in The Last Jedi, he's more jaded and all that stuff. And he is probably trying to prevent another Kylo. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I thought that too, kind of subconsciously, of just noting they're in different areas. So, agree and also sort of disagree.
One thing that I forgot to mention in the recap that kind of ties into what you guys are talking about just a tiny bit is that when Mando is there waiting for somebody to arrive and he's just sitting on that bench, we see a lot of giant droids building a new Jedi Academy, like the first Jedi Academy. So we do get to see a little bit of the beginning of that. So that kind of ties into, you guys talking about the whole Jedi training then versus now.
Yeah, another connection there, because I don't think they confirmed what planet we're actually on. I don't think it's Octu, but the way that the houses and everything were built on Octu is very, very resemblant to the house or hut for this new temple that Luke is building. They're very, very similar. So I wonder if that's kind of his style of building those places.
I thought Ahsoka Tano might have said what planet they were on, but I didn't catch it.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't catch it.
Because she was talking to Mando and she was like, "There's no place safer than on somewhere," and I didn't catch it.
Oh,
I thought she had said then here with Luke.
Yeah, I thought that's what she said.
Oh, did she? Okay, all right, never mind.
But to wrap up my thoughts on the episode, hands down, my favorite part was Cad Bane because of this like new. Well, I don't know if it's new.
He was the stranger in the desert that the title implied.
Well, but he felt so different to me in a way, like because I remembered him, from the Clone Wars and all that good stuff. But there was something very different about him in this show. And seriously, I want a Cad Bane show after I saw that, just because the way his character was. One thing I had thought of while watching is wondering the way Cad Bane was. I had wondered if that was kind of what people were expecting from Boba, because he was very to
the point.
Yeah, to the point with his words, a little short. Most of the time he had his hat over his eyes, so his face was a bit shielded. Because a lot of people complain about the helmet off all the time. But I really enjoyed Cad Bane. He was so cool. And something that we always kind of wonder, how are they going to translate from an animated show to live action? Spot on with Cad Bane. So
chef's kiss.
Yeah. So
my thoughts after that interaction with the Marshal and Cad Bane, I was like, Jon Favreau or Kathy Kennedy, I was like, give me either Deadwood but Star Wars if you want to do a show, or give me The Good, Bad, and the Ugly but Star Wars if they want to do a movie. Like, give me that right now with Cad Bane and the Marshal, and I will eat that up.
It'd be a good one for sure. What are your thoughts, Sarah?
Well, with that, do you think the Marshal's still alive?
I do.
Yeah. He looks like he got hit in the shoulder.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the other guy might be dead. I think Cad Bane.
Oh, he's definitely dead.
I think Cad Bane sent a message with the other guy, but the Marshal, I think he got hit in the shoulder, and it seemed like everybody was attending to the Marshal, and everybody was like, forget the other guy.
He was annoying.
Yeah, truth be told, I was kind of happy he was gone.
I think we all were.
I mean, he might not be 100%. I think that was his shooting arm too, so that might be an issue. But I think I think he's alive. So
Overall, I did really like the episode. It was a lot to keep track of, but at the same time, it wasn't really super confusing. I feel like it was done in a good way, that you were still able to track what's going on between the different scenarios. And part of that, I think, is because Mando was kind of the link tying these different things together. He wasn't always at each place when the things were happening, but he went and visited the planet where Luke and Grogu were, and so then we got to see that. He went and visited Boba's palace, and so then that got tied in too. He went and visited the Marshal, so the Marshal piece kind of made sense. So even though it's not Boba tying these pieces together, it's Mando, it still kind of made it flow nicely, at least in my eyes. I really enjoyed getting to see the Marshal again. I recognized him right away, not necessarily who he was. I need some help remembering where I remembered him from, but I did recognize him as a character that we've seen before. I thought his outfit choice was kind of a little weird. I know he doesn't have the armor anymore, but there's something about his shirt. It didn't really look like Marshal wear. I don't know. It looked weird, but I guess it's kind of nitpicky.
what does a Marshal look like then?
Not wearing a shirt that your dad got from the 90s. I don't know. It that's what it reminded me of. It doesn't, I don't know. He needs to look more official other than just a gun, a badge, a shield,
And the belt buckle.
something. Okay, something more than the gun and the gun loop.
He had the belt buckle.
He did.
I don't know. It just struck me a little odd. I think he needed to look a little bit more official for what he's doing. I know he's trying to blend in, but still. I feel like I recognized the girl that he talked to when he was telling her she was like working on a ship or something, and he told her to gather the people and go inside when he saw Cad Bane coming up. Did you guys recognize her too?
I didn't think anything of it.
No? Oh, well.
I recognize the bartender, but that's about it.
See, I did not recognize him, but I guess that's a good thing though, that we're recognizing some of these people and that they're, staying consistent with the story. We already kind of talked about how we felt about Luke. How did you feel, Tony, about Luke?
In this episode?
Yeah, for like the deep fake or whatever you want to call it.
My first thought when he first went on screen and he was meditating, I had to think, I was like, is that the actor? Like, are they not doing the deep faking? So I thought that was really good. Once he started moving and everything, I could kind of tell, but no, I thought the deep fake stuff has improved, tenfold since the end of the Mandalorian. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah. I'm wondering too what you guys think about Boba not having any speaking lines in this, because for me, that was kind of my only other little kind of nitpicky thing, is that we saw him, and once again, it was Fennec telling everything that's going on, much like when they had that dinner meeting in a previous episode right above the Rancor pit, and she's the one who's kind of telling everybody, look, this is how it is. If you want to listen to Boba, then this is what'll happen, and if you don't, this is what'll happen. I feel like it was kind of like that again, where he's there, but he's not showing any kind of authority. He's not talking at all. He's just kind of letting her run the show. I feel like it would have gone a long way if he even just said like a one-liner. What do you guys think?
I honestly, I really don't care. It doesn't bother me at all.
In a way, I kind of like it, because I feel that Boba doesn't have to speak to, exert, who he is, kind of a thing. Just, seeing him behind Tony, I feel like that he's a bad guy, or in this case, he wants to be respected. But I feel like just the way he is fine with me, because, they know like the legend of Boba Fett, they know he's
someone not to be messed with.
Yeah.
Cad Bane, listed off his resume, basically.
Yeah, the word I wanted to use I couldn't say. So really cool guy. Um yeah, I think it's fine. I think that's the way he kind of should be. Uh kind of like a fly on the wall. There is that all your thoughts on the
I'm
episode?
good for now.
There's
Okay,
one.
I had a question for you. On the flashback to Order 66, the camera lingered a little bit on that lightsaber after the Jedi were killed. Was that somebody's lightsaber in particular? I couldn't put a I couldn't figure it out.
I did not recognize the hilt.
Okay.
I felt like those were just like generic stand-ins for the Jedi. I don't think they were implying, um, any of the specific characters from the past. I will say for that scene in particular, I really it was another huge tease from this episode because we don't know how Grogu got out of the temple. We don't know who picked him up. Uh, Sarah and I were discussing this actually before we hopped on here, and we were wondering, what if Grogu just kind of tapped into something and like blew him away? But at the same time, I feel like Anakin or Darth Vader at the time would have felt that in the Force and would have wanted to track him down. So my only guess is that Ahsoka picked him up and she knows him and is just kind of, not saying anything.
I feel like we could have a whole show based just on what he's been doing the last 50 years and how he got his little egg bed that Mando found him in. But
maybe that comes later on. Maybe Luke taps into more of those memories and then we get to see him.
it'd be pretty cool.
And just like Boba with his back to tank.
There you go.
There was something else that was really cool in this episode. It really wasn't a part of the story, but it was kind of a cosmetic thing. Sarah, when we were watching, she goes, "What is that?" And there's this huge thing on top of the Jawa sand crawler. It's a big old skull, and that the crate dragon. And also, because I don't remember it being in there before the crate dragon battle in season 2 of Mando, but in the bar, there's like the whole like backbone and ribs all along the walls, and I'm pretty sure that's from the crate dragon.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
They did mention at some point how their town took down the crate dragon in that scene, which I think was kind of trying to trigger you to look at that.
Yeah. Also, last episode, I don't remember her name, forgive us, everybody. The lady that has the docking bay, she mentioned that she dated a Jawa and that they're furry little creatures. They had a shot specifically like by the hand of one of the Jawas, and you could see like fur hanging out. So that was kind of a little, I think, callback to last episode to kind of like, hey, see, they are furry.
I'm so glad they added that piece of lore. I feel like such a even bigger Star Wars fan now that I know that Jawas are furry.
Yeah, now we just need them to take the hoods off.
Yeah.
Anything else big from this episode that we're missing?
Do you still think that they're going to have the giant battle next episode? Really?
I do, and
they have to. Like they literally spent like all season, especially these last 2 episodes, like setting the chess table. Like I don't know what else they can do at this point. I think Fennec actually said they have everyone they need. So,
which I thought was silly because all she said was we have Din Djarin, Mando, and Chrysanthemum. We have everybody we need. I'm like, really? That's it? Just them 2? Okay.
Gang's all here.
Yeah. Reflecting on past things that I expected for the big battle, I don't think it's going to be as big as we think. I think kind of like how Tony is mentioning that they keep going back to these Western type things. I think it's going to be like a shootout in the streets.
Ooh,
I think it's going to be
probably
because, like you said, there's only like 10 of them. How can they, take on this massive battle with 10 people? So
but there's so many pikes. So do you just expect them to take out 20 of them and the rest are just going to bend their knee?
I don't know about that, but
well, there's that. But I don't know how many Pikes are actually on Tatooine at the moment. Like the entire syndicate's not on Tatooine, I don't think.
When they were looking at the map, when Fennec was showing like, all these red dots are them, there was, I don't know, maybe 30 or something like that. But we saw in a previous episode with our moped gang, if you will, when they saw the Pikes first coming in, it was this giant ship and they were just flooding out. There was tons of them.
That's true.
So, I don't know. It's hard to say when you're actually there.
Jeremy, I think just being an avid consumer of movies, I think you hit the nail right on the head, because it's like a thing in Western movies where you have the squad, roll up on a town, usually walking in a line for some reason. And then they like challenge for the town, and then like a shootout erupts in the town. And that's probably what's going to happen. That I would, in fact, I'm probably going to like bet money on it that that's how it's going to go down. Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it has to, just, based on the numbers. And I think it would be good. I don't think we've really seen that in Star Wars. And like you said, it's best when it leans on what it's inspired by. So I would look forward to that.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would satisfy me.
I'm just waiting to see, that happen. Boba rushes off camera, and then all of a sudden we see the Rancor and him riding in, just ripping through Pikes.
My other kind of prediction is that I think the battle is going to go down, and Boba's forces are going to be kind of overwhelmed and pushed back, and then somebody is going to come in to help him out, whether it's the Marshal or maybe Luke and Grogu, maybe even Han Solo, who knows. So I that's what I think is going to happen. Like, we're going to think that they're going to lose, and then something's going to come in and save them.
Yeah, I think I'd be more inclined to see Grogu and Luke. I think it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know if you remember, I gave criticism, I think it was an episode maybe 2 ago, when Mando was up in space and he got pulled over. I wouldn't put it past that they have seen activity of the Pikes coming up on the planet, and if spice is illegal to be moving and stuff, or to be in possession, I could see them trying to hop on that.
There you go.
But I think that's the little more far-fetched version of it. What do you think is going to happen?
I'm staying with what I said last week. I don't think we're going to see the big battle this week. I think it's going to be, or next week, if you will. I think there's just not enough time. I could see them, if Luke and Grogu are going to be in on this, we got to see what happens, whether he chooses a lightsaber and we see him use it or something, or he chooses the chainmail, and maybe that's why they're going back to find Mando, and that's how they join the fight, is because they see Mando's in trouble and needs help or something like that. We got to resolve the issue with the Marshal potentially being dead or hurt or whatnot, and those townsfolk now having a reason to fight. They're going to need training, much like we saw in Mandalorian when him and Cara Dune trained this little town to take down the Chicken Walker. I could see us having some sort of montage like that again with these people, even though they fought the Krayt Dragon. This is kind of a different type of fight for them to prepare for. We've got the moped gang. I wouldn't say that they really know how to fight, so they probably need training too. If he is going to ride in on the Rancor, I feel like it's pretty far-fetched to just say the next time we see the Rancor, he's going to be riding it already. I feel like there's got to be some sort of bonding experience or something for us to see to make that a little bit more believable, even if it's just a quick 2-minute scene. But these are a lot of missing pieces before a battle, and then you need time for the actual battle itself too. I just don't see it happening. I don't know how they could possibly fit all of that into still just like a 45-minute episode, because that's what they've been, kind of give or take, say 10 minutes, is around the 45-minute mark. I feel like we're saying all these things and it's like an entire movie worth that we're going to cram into one little episode.
I will give you that they have a lot of loose ends to tie up in this last episode. I completely agree with that. Although I don't think that all of the threads that were created in this whole season will be answered.
Right.
Like I said, I think a lot of these are threads to continue to other Star Wars shows like Mandalorian and maybe the Ahsoka show and whatever.
Yeah.
If, good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't think they're going to tie up everything, but that there is still a lot to tie up. And I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll set it up, and then season 3, episode 1 of Mandalorian will be the battle. Who knows? So yeah, your viewpoint is valid. That is a possibility. I would be very, very disappointed, but that is possible.
Fight this episode. How do you guys anticipate it ending then? Because it can't just be they fight, they win, the end. That's it, because then that's not going to be very satisfactory either. You got to have some sort of aftermath or plan moving forward.
I think it's possible to do that. And the reason why I say that is I think what could happen is it's kind of like a 80s action hero type movie where, this big battle resolves and there's like 2 minutes of, hey, what you gonna do now? Oh, I'm gonna go back home. I think they're gonna have this big battle. They're gonna have like maybe 5 minutes of dialogue. It's gonna maybe set up where some of these people are going. Maybe some small shots of Mando going someplace, Boba doing something, Luke doing something, whatever. But I think it'll be more branched out when Mando season 1 or season 3, episode 1 comes out, and I think they will flush it out a little more there because I could see that show kicking off with like a recap of that big battle.
Yeah, I think that's a fair guess. I don't think the aim of the battle will be to like completely destroy the Pike Syndicate. I think they're just trying to like push them out of the town, which again is like a very Western thing. So I think they'll fight for a while, and then Boba's team will eventually win, and then Boba might be like, hey, he might like find a Pike that's like wounded or whatever, and be like, hey, this is my town. Y'all can't run your spice here anymore. So GTFO, guys. And then they'll leave, and then that'll be that. Something like that.
Do you still think Boba's going to die this episode, at the end of this season?
I didn't even know you had that thought.
Well, I had that thought when the back to tank was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
I had wondered if, he's going to get to a point where he can't get back to the tank. But now that he's the 100% healed, I don't think he's going to die. Once that was wrapped up, I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, hindsight, I think we talked about that on the review. I think that was more of the narrative tool to, flesh out his backstory and stuff like that. So probably wasn't what I thought it was. Or maybe he'll get hurt in the battle and the new objective will be to rush him back to the Bacta tank. Who knows?
I will say, if we do get some sort of massive battle yet this episode, this next episode, whatever it may be, I think they're going to find a way to top this episode. This episode topped last week. Next episode is going to top this one because there's just so much stuff going on. I think it's going to be insane.
It has to. The one thing they cannot do is, basically what happened with Game of Thrones, at least from like the mass of amount of fans, it cannot let down. Mm-hmm. I think what's going to happen, I think, is going to be acceptable. Obviously, there's going to be people that don't like what happens, but I think it's going to, it's going to be good. I don't think it's going to go bad. They just need to do either the Wild Bunch, except without the main characters dying, or Magnificent Seven,
but Star Wars, and it'll be good.
The one other thing aside from the battle that I wish we'd have got a little more about is Ahsoka mentioned to Luke that she had to go someplace, like she was leaving. One thing I had hoped is that she would have given some sort of indicator of what's going on with her, because we really didn't get anything out of her of potentially where her show is going. All we know is that she was there randomly, and she was the medium between Mando and
Mhm.
Grogu.
I'm going to be honest. I think she would not, okay, not to sound like super cynical or whatever, because I think it was cool that she showed up. But I think they put her in there because if Luke did all that exposition, that would have made his post-production deepfake stuff really expensive. So they probably were like, "Oh, quick, put in Ahsoka Tano to do all of it because we just need to put makeup on her or whatever."
I'm pretty sure, wasn't Dave Filoni the director of this one?
He was the writer.
Or the writer?
I don't know if he directed it too.
Well, either way, so even the writing would make sense. This definitely felt like a Filoni episode.
Yes.
All of his stuff was plugged in there. So
Yep. Which is, on brand for him.
yeah. I think that covers all of it from me.
I'm good, I think. Who knows? I'll probably think of something later. But
Yeah, we'll probably cut and be like, oh man. But
Yep.
yeah, so that was Book of Boba, I should say. Episode 6. I think Tony, you said the name of the title, The Stranger.
It's like from the desert a stranger arrives or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Which, we found out was Cad Bane, which was
Mhm.
super cool. I look forward
Apparently
to
he walks everywhere.
Yeah. I was trying to squint to see who that was. I was super excited. And then it was even better to see how well done he was. But yeah, if you want to see the finale discussion, which will be next week, make sure to turn on your notifications. That way you are alerted when that video drops. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the episode. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.